Brian Clark is an expert in naval operations, also a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute, and joins us again tonight. Has been a real wealth of knowledge when it comes to the status of the battle right now. Brian, good to see you. Let's talk about this second phase that is underway at this point. Can Ukraine win this battle in the Donbas region?
I think it's going to be very difficult, Marnie. The challenge they have now is that the Russians have been operating in eastern Ukraine for about a decade. Since the annexation of Crimea, Russian troops have been mounting what we call a gray zone operation in the Donbas, in Donetsk and Luhansk, where they've had paramilitary troops, private military contractors, Russian soldiers that are out of uniform, all operating to push back on Ukrainian forces in the regions you have in red on the map there. The operations that these Russian forces have been doing for about a decade have allowed them to put in place logistics, communication networks, be able to map out the areas, understand the road networks, and understand where the opportunities are for Russians to quickly get in and how to cut off the options for Ukrainians to mount a counteroffensive.
Right. They are familiar with the area in which they fight. If Vladimir Putin and the Russian forces prevail in Donbas, will that satisfy Putin's desire for control, or does that then, Brian, open up the door for the invasion to push forward even beyond this region?
I think the Russian government's ready to mount a protracted campaign. So I think that taking the Donbas will not be sufficient to call a victory and go home. I think what they're going to do is basically use that as an opportunity to reconsolidate their troops and then eventually mount a later offensive against the rest of Ukraine. As you can see from the operations they've been doing now, they're still mounting missile strikes against Western Ukraine and Kyiv. And the idea there is to degrade the Ukrainian economy, reduce its infrastructure, make it so Ukraine cannot really kind of reconstitute its ability militarily or economically. And like they did in Chechnya, you could see the Russians mount another offensive in a year that goes after the rest of Ukraine.
I want to talk to you about a couple of points regarding supplies and weaponry. Right now, we're hearing reports that the U.S., as Kelly mentioned, is going to be training some of the Ukrainians on these Howitzer artillery systems. First of all, explain that munition and what impact will it have on the battle?
Yeah, so 155 millimeter Howitzer is a self-propelled gun, so it's got its own engine that drives itself around, and it shoots a round that's about 5.5 inches wide. They've got a range of, depending on the kind of round you use, between 15 and 40 miles. Usually they're down in the 15-mile range, but it's a much longer range than any of the other artillery that the Ukrainians currently have, and it would allow them to be able to go after Russian troops that are fighting in this very open territory that you can see from the video that exists in eastern Ukraine. So it's not the urban environment or the wooded areas that we saw in the north. It's instead a very flat plain where you're going to be easily seen if you're out there running around with a Javelin missile. So they need these longer range artillery pieces to be able to attack Russian forces as they roll in. But targeting is difficult. So you need to have training in order to be able to target that artillery effectively on the battlefield.
Realistically, how long does that type of training happen?
It takes only a few weeks. I mean, so we train, the brand new folks that are going to be operating that kind of artillery for the United States in a few weeks for their initial kind of basic understanding of how to use it, which should be sufficient for this operation. We're not dealing with necessarily large concentrations of troops. You're not dealing with fast moving operations. So the initial training they receive in Poland or wherever they get that training is going to be sufficient to get them out there and be able to target this artillery effectively on the battlefield.
The other thing, Brian, that caught my attention today is the continuous supplies that are coming in from the West to help Ukraine in the fight, those supply chain lines. Well, now we're hearing that Russia is inflating the amount of munitions that are being contributed to the battle. How significant is that at this point in speaking to Russia's frustration and trying to propagate the type of information it wants, looking for ways to escalate?
Yeah, they definitely want to make it. They want to portray the U.S. and NATO support to Ukraine as being much greater than it has been, to try to, one, convince their own people that there's a reason why Russia is not performing well. It's actually fighting NATO as opposed to just fighting Ukraine. And they also want to be able to set up a potential for later escalating on their half. If they use chemical or nuclear weapons, they want to have a pretext to do that. And these inflations of the Western support are part of that narrative.
And all the while, President Zelensky continuing to make his case to join the European Union. We'll see how that plays out as well. Brian Clark, always appreciate your insight. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.